What an incredible Six Nations it's been so far. From the Van der Merwe tribe versus England, an all-time classic between Ireland and France, to a vastly improved Italian side, it's been a cracker of a tournament and we've still got 2 rounds to go. From an English standpoint, it's been an interesting start under Borthwick and the new coaching setup. The creaking scrum of the autumn series has been stabilised, and instead of leaking penalties and field position, it's winning them. The lineout had a shaky start against Scotland, but with the head coach made in the engine room, it was only a minor blip, the Italians feeling the full force of England's driving maul. But it was non existent versus Wales, as England looked to other areas of attack. It's clear the set piece has been a key pillar of Borthwick's coaching plan, and he's absolutely spot on. Without a platform to play off, your whole game plan is compromised. Improving both the set piece and discipline were the main focus of the incoming coaching staff, and they've succeeded. England have given away the fewest penalties in the competition and have the second best scrum and also the second best lineout. With both England's scrum and lineout percentages now over 90%, it's incredible to look back and compare to the autumn under Jones, when they were languishing in the mid 80s. In such a short space of time, Borthwick and his staff's influence on the set piece is truly astonishing. Moving on to the game plan itself, and this has not seen the seismic improvement that other areas have experienced. It wouldn't be an England video without talking about kicking, as they've kicked more than any other team in the competition, averaging a whopping 35 kicks in play per match. However, it is their approach that has surprised us the most. Many expected England to adopt Leicester's long kicking game, forcing kick battles until the other team makes a mistake, whether it be directly from the boot, poor decision making in the backfield, or failing to make a cohesive chase. However, quite controversially, England have developed a kicking game more akin to the Quinn style of kicking on the front foot. Whilst this is a perfectly acceptable tactic at Premiership level, where teams rack up a multitude of line breaks and front foot ball, on the international stage it appears wasteful, as teams are much tighter defensively. As a result, with limited opportunities to play in good field position with quick ball, it's imperative to only kick when it's on. We saw a great example of this for Maylands' first try. The forwards dragged the Scottish defence incredibly narrow, and Smith finds his winger in acres of space for the crossfield kick. Comparing that with this example from the Italian game, and it's alarming. Farrell is 10 metres away from the try line, with Stewart, Hassel-Collins and George outside him, lined up against the Italian 12 and 14. Yet instead of backing Stewart from close range, he chooses to grub a through for his hooker to chase. For an elite game manager like Farrell, this is a really disappointing decision, going for a Hail Mary play with such a low percentage chance. But it's not just the Sarries man attempting these kicks. JVP, Youngs, and others have all been guilty of kicking the ball away inside the opposition's 22, which show it's clearly a tactic that's come from above and not an off-the-cuff decision. Moving away from the kicking game and onto ball carrying, and we've seen a remarkable shift from the forwards. In the autumn, England was sluggish, struggling to make metres after contact, and slow to get up from the breakdown and offer themselves again. This wasn't the pack that obliterated the All Blacks in the World Cup semi-final, with their work rate and intensity in collisions. Of course, there are many factors that contributed to this downfall. Being 3.5 years down the line, players ageing is one I'd like to focus on. Obviously, you can't prevent players aging. If I could, I'd be in serious demand. But in terms of the players physically not being in the condition to produce the levels we had become accustomed to. In my previous video, I included a segment on Billy Vunipola, explaining that both his international carrying and offloading stats have declined, and the peak of his powers are seemingly in the past. The same can be said about his brother Mako and the recalled Dan Cole, who've both struggled to have any impact in the loose. Whenever Borthwick takes off Genge and Sinclair, the game has turned flat, as the subs cannot offer anywhere near the ball-carrying threat of the Bristol Bears duo. Moving back to Billy's position, and I expected Alex Dombrandt to shine in at number 8, especially with the arrival of Nick Evans as attack coach. However, he's yet to transfer his Quinn's form across the road to HQ. At just 25, he's got time on his side, but England have serious competition for places in the back row. His performance against Wales was his best in an England shirt to date. However, there are still worrying issues to his game. The most concerning of these is conceding too many turnovers. Looking into the role of a number 8, getting their team on the front foot with powerful ball carrying is the main objective, but retaining possession is also hugely important. Just like when an NFL running back fumbles the ball, the defense gets a huge lift if they win a turnover against your primary ball carrier. This trickles into the minds of your teammates, and suddenly everyone is conceding turnovers. In particular, it pressurizes your scrum half, and when your halfback is a young, inexperienced player like Jack Van Poortvliet, it's even worse. Adding some numbers into that statement, and Alex Dombrandt has conceded 8 turnovers in 191 minutes. This equates to averaging a turnover every 24. And JVP has conceded 6, both contributing to the 42 England have conceded in 3 matches, the joint highest with Italy. By comparison, the two top sides in the world, Ireland and France, have conceded just 25 and 30 respectively. Delving into the type of turnovers England concede, and it won't make the players feel any better. 29 of the 42 were unforced errors, the worst in the competition. If they are to challenge in 6 months' time, they'll need to address this quickly. England also have the most handling errors with 28. There are 3 important factors when analysing handling errors. The first is obviously the pass. If the pass is off target or overthrown, then it's incredibly hard for a player to catch the ball. The second is receiver error. This could be simply dropping the ball, but would also include making their move too early and overrunning a pass. The last factor is pressure. This normally is related to catching high balls, but could be extended to taking a ball in midfield with numerous defenders up in your face. As shown in these clips, England haven't helped themselves, with multiple errors of each type. We know Dombrandt's hands are brilliant once he's in possession of the ball, but getting it to him has been difficult at times. Jack Willis's passing is also a bit suspect, especially off his left hand, which as an international 7 seems worryingly basic. Comparing the Toulouse man's ability with the pass to the likes of Justin Tipperick, Josh van der Fleer, and the Curry brothers, who all have excellent handling, and it highlights his limitations. Looking into ball carrying, and again, Willis has made just 10 carries for a total of 6 metres. Dare I say it, but Willis appears slightly one-dimensional. It's like when you start a game and put all your attributes into a couple of categories and leave the rest on basic. Please don't take this as me bashing Willis because I don't rate him. It's in fact because I rate him so highly that I know he can be world class. You only need to look at his carrying stats across the Premiership and top 14 to realise how accomplished a player he is. His average of 4 metres per carry is in the top 3 of all England's back row options, above both number 8s, Dombrandt and Simmonds, and he's also won more metres after contact than anyone else. Like in real life, we've given a lot of attention to Willis and Dombrandt, and yet again England's unsung hero has gone under the radar. That, of course, would be the Northampton Saints skipper, Lewis Ludlam. In my review for England versus Scotland after round 1, I described Lewis Ludlam as a perfect 21. Don't worry, I'm not doing an Eddie Jones and turning him into a replacement scrum half. Like the footballer, Jude Bellingham wears the number 22 because he's the perfect blend of a 4, an 8, and a 10. Ludlam is the rugby equivalent of a 6, a 7, and an 8. In my opinion, Tom Curry and Jack Willis could also fill this role, as well as Tom Pearson and Ted Hill from the Premiership, and obviously Zach Mercer. In rugby, the back row positions have key components that indicate which number a player wears on his back. For example, a modern day 6 is your third line-out jumper, hence why we're seeing locks in the back row more than ever before. A 7 is a jackal specialist who consistently tops the tackle count with their brilliant work rate, and an 8, as we've discussed, is a team's primary ball carrier and a key figurehead of the attack. In recent years, teams have followed these norms to differing levels. Eddie Jones was obviously a fan of a huge number 8, with Vunipola and Hughes occupying this position more than anyone else in his tenure. And post the 2019 Rugby World Cup, with the addition of Matt Proudfoot to the coaching staff, Eddie converted to playing a lock at 6, as Laws broke up Tom Curry and Sam Underhill's Kamikaze Kids partnership. In fact, nearly every Tier 1 nation at some point has adopted the approach that brought South Africa World Cup glory. But now, almost a whole World Cup cycle later, we may finally see a shift away from the conventional back row we've become accustomed to. Like South Africa were the team to copy post 2019, Ireland go into the tournament as the number one test ranked side, and their well drilled pack is really interesting to analyse. Rather than having the specific roles for each player, with Pieter-Steph du Toit for the line-out, Sia Khaleesi hunting for turnovers and tackles, and Dwayne Vermeulen crashing everything up, Ireland have created a perfect balance whereby they're not overly reliant on any of their back row for one particular skill. At the line-out, Peter O'Mahony, Josh van der Fleer, Caelan Doris, and Jack Conan are all willing receivers. Forcing the opposition to monitor 5 potential operators is almost impossible and gives the line-out caller endless options to call. Spreading the carrying across the back row again forces your opponent to mark everyone, not knowing who is going to crash it up. As a result, there's less chance of teams making double tackles, which equals more dominant carries and front foot ball. And finally, with multiple jackal threats across the pitch, teams cannot linger at the breakdown. Having 3 complete back rowers drives coaches mad, as it's so hard to plan against. Arguably, Tide Burn was up there with the best blindside flankers in the world when he was nominated for Six Nations Player of the Tournament and went on the Lions tour. However, the range of ability these back rowers possess has pushed him back into Ireland's engine room. Returning to England's setup, and Borthwick has the players to emulate the Swiss Army knife of back rows. With the injury to Laws, it's come more through necessity rather than choice, but the form Ludlam has shown there highlights the depth England have in this position. Many would have thought the line-out may go awry without a massive 6 in the squad, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, before Alan Wynne-Jones pilfered one from Ludlam a fortnight ago, the Saints skipper hadn't lost a single line-out at the front for 2 years, securing 50 from 50. Equally adept at 6, 7 or 8, Ludlam epitomises the new style of back rower. The same can be said for Tom Curry, who despite being unlucky with injuries, remains a hugely important part of the squad, captaining the side last year in the absence of Farrell and Laws. You forget the 45-time capped international is just 24, the same age as Marcus Smith. Having already played everywhere across the back row at the highest level, it's easy to see Curry slotting back in seamlessly. Him and Ludlam together are a perfect pairing, operating like machines with their relentless work rates and variety of skills. The third member of the back row is anyone's guess. Current incumbents Willis and Dombran will have the most opportunities to put their hands up for selection. Alternatively, Sam Underhill or Ben Curry could make a case for themselves. Underhill has been away from the squad after a series of ill-timed injuries just before selection was announced, but his ability is unquestionable. Curry is among the replacements to face France this weekend, so will undoubtedly get another chance to perform. Although his Prem carrying stats appear to be a little below par, the Sale captain has really stepped up on the international stage, averaging more metres per carry than Dombran and Willis. After the missed tackle on Ben White in his Six Nations debut, it could have been difficult to overcome for Curry, but he's shown great attitude and his turnover here versus Wales was crucial to the victory. In the not too distant future, the likes of Bath's Ted Hill, London Irish duo Tom Pearson and Chandler Cunningham South, and Gloucester's inbound signing Zach Mercer will add serious depth to this England back row, and they're similarly skilled, all offering this 21 position I've termed. The only back row we haven't discussed is the Premiership Player of the Season Ben Earl, and whilst the Saracen has shone on the domestic stage, his transfer to Test level hasn't been smooth. You can see how desperately he wants to make an impact, but during the Six Nations, that desperation resulted in a slight lack of discipline, as Earl conceded a penalty at the breakdown in each of his cameos. Unlike his teammates, the 25-year-old doesn't suit the new back row style. Although his jackling and ball-carrying talent is clear to see, he has never been considered as a line-out option, and his lack of weight could be an issue at scrum time. It could be nitpicking and a bit harsh on Earl, but with the current trajectory of international rugby, I think he will struggle to force his way into the squad. This weekend against France proves to be a mouth-watering matchup. Their back row looks unbelievably big, and considering the long-term injuries to Gelange and Woki, they also have incredible strength and depth. Interestingly, Crowe, Olivon, Audrey and Macalou have all played 6, 7 and 8 in their career,
Therefore, with the number 1 and 2 test sites both operating with hybrid back rows rather than specified roles, surely it's only a matter of time until this becomes the norm at international level.